Welcome to the El Salvador SV News Podcast, a space for conversation and reflection where we explore current topics from El Salvador and the world together. You can support this project via PayPal. You'll also find details in the description of this content or by purchasing digital content of products you might like. Check out what interests you and make a purchase. With that, you help and support us to continue providing content. You'll find all the methods in the content description. Find us on your favorite platform, on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn Radio. We're on almost all platforms as Noticias El Salvador SV. Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we are diving deep into a remarkable global paradox. You have the high stakes, multi-trillion-dollar world of institutional finance on Wall Street. And it's colliding with the extremely pressurized ground-level realities of specific national economies. Economies that often rely, almost entirely on the flow of foreign capital just to function.
And that tension is really what defines our source material today. We have a heavy stack of reports that connect the dots from, say, structural deficits in Central America, specifically El Salvador, straight through to the massive shifts happening in global banking, and then all the way to critical geopolitical flashpoints like a high-profile assassination in Moscow.
So our mission for you, the listener, is to synthesize these incredibly complex and often contradictory stories. We need to look at the staggering irony of a major United States bank, led by a longtime skeptic, finally capitulating to the digital asset revolution, while a pioneering government-backed crypto project struggles so desperately on the ground, really just with the fundamental mechanics of user trust. We're connecting a record $9 billion remittance inflow to the strategic pressures driving military conflict in the Caribbean and on the European front.
It's a deep dive that shows how capital, risk, and human migration are just inextricably linked. And to really understand the foundation of this volatile system, we have to start with El Salvador. Because the economic numbers there, while they look impressive on paper, they're masking some pretty serious structural warnings.
Exactly. Let's establish that economic foundation first. When you sift through the data, what's the one financial performance indicator that genuinely stands out to you?
What's fascinating here is the sheer velocity of the financial recovery. I mean, the Salvadoran economy grew by an impressive 5.1% in the third quarter of this year. For context, that's its largest quarterly advance since 2021. It suggests a strong, very recent economic acceleration in a year when, frankly, much of the rest of the world was slowing down.
And we know that economic lifeblood is remittances, so that flow of foreign capital must have been instrumental.
It wasn't just instrumental, it blew past all expectations. Households received a record $9,021 million in family remittances by November. That's an astonishing 18% growth just in the first 11 months of the year. When we talk about critical lifelines, that capital influx is what keeps the lights on for millions, and it's driving the bulk of that GDP growth.
Okay, so that's the stunning success story. But every deep dive requires us to look at the counterpoint. What are the massive fiscal challenges lurking just beneath the surface of that GDP figure?
Right.
The serious counterpoint lies in long-term fiscal stability, particularly surrounding the national pension system. The actuarial studies we reviewed in our sources, they show a persistent and growing deficit. It's an unsustainable structure.
And the consensus among financial experts on the ground is pretty blunt about the solution, isn't it?
It is, very blunt. Experts state unequivocally that raising the retirement age is and I'm quoting here, statistical necessity. It's the only way to maintain the system's solvency long term. The challenge is structural. You have an aging population and an economy that, despite the remittance boom, just doesn't generate enough local payroll taxes. And while the government has proposed making anticipated pension payments permanent, that's really just treating a symptom. It's not solving the core issue.
That structural tension booming capital coming in versus long-term fiscal obligations. It's so intrinsically linked to the movement of people. The records aren't just in money, they're in human migration too. Precisely. The sources detail a staggering scale of travel. More than 13 million people entered and exited El Salvador in 2025. That kind of volume really highlights the deep connection between the economy and the diaspora, but also the instability that drives people to migrate in the first place.
And in response, we see policy tools being deployed. The United States, or Estados Unidos, is actively trying to manage this flow. We learned they raised the financial incentive to $3,000 for migrants who agree to self-deport before the end of the year.
That $3,000 incentive, that's a significant administrative tool. It reflects just how intense the political and logistical pressure on the migration system in Estados Unidos has become. They're literally willing to pay to streamline the process.
And behind those numbers and policies, you find these individual cases that just illustrate the extreme friction in the system. Take the case of Colmar Abrego. I mean, he represents this intense legal and administrative pressure perfectly.
It's a really complex saga. He's been detained 4 times, has 2 open cases, and is now facing deportation to Africa. A federal judge in Estados Unidos is set to evaluate if he should be returned to custody despite a prior release order, and even the approval of his Salvadoran passport renewal. It's a bureaucratic nightmare.
This complex legal friction playing out against a massive economic boom. It brings us back to those stark social deficits, this really powerful moment of reflection.
It is a staggering contradiction. How can the Salvadoran economy boast 5.1% growth and $9 billion in remittances, yet 2 million of its citizens lack reliable access to potable water? It's a powerful reminder that GDP growth is not the whole story, not even close.
I found the detail about families in rural areas just gut-wrenching. We read about families living with only 12 cantaradas of water every 2 days. And for you listening, a cantarada is a very large jug, maybe 5 gallons or more, getting only 12 of those for everything for 2 days. It illustrates a crushing daily reality that just stands in sharp relief against those record financial inflows.
And this foundational stability, or lack thereof, it's being tested not just by
And this isn't some tentative pilot project. What's the actual scope of this massive pivot?
Oh, it's a total overhaul. They plan to execute Bitcoin and Ethereum spot trading, sure. But more importantly, they're building specialized desks for hedge funds to trade complex derivatives, options, futures. The truly revolutionary piece, though, is their existing infrastructure. They're leveraging their Onyx unit and their private blockchain, JPMorgan. This is designed to revolutionize real-time cross-border payments. The goal, according to analysts, is to lay the foundation for a fully tokenized global economy.
So they're pivoting hard not just to trade crypto, but to dramatically cut transaction costs on the back end of their core business. That must mean the market structure itself is maturing dramatically.
It is. The blind euphoria, that retail-driven excitement that pushed Bitcoin to historic highs, is largely dissipated. Bitcoin is consolidating now, which is a healthy sign of stability. But as a result, capital is rotating, investors are searching for higher beta.
Okay, let's clarify higher beta for anyone listening who might be less familiar with that term.
Absolutely. So when an investor seeks higher beta, they're looking for assets that are expected to be more volatile than the overall market. It means they offer the potential for much greater returns, but also, of course, greater losses. Higher risk for higher reward.
And where is that speculative high beta capital flowing now that Bitcoin is consolidating?
It's flowing into altcoins tied specifically to utility. The 2 major areas are artificial intelligence, so AI, and what they call real-world asset, or RWA tokenization. RWA tokenization is basically putting tangible assets, real estate, commodities, onto a blockchain. It transforms illiquid assets into tradable digital tokens. A massive potential market. Utility is now king.
And that deep institutional acceptance, that technical maturity, it just stands in such stark contrast to what's happening on the ground in El Salvador. Let's go back to the Chivo Wallet paradox. The first nation to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender sees its official crypto tool struggling with an existential crisis of confidence.
The Chivo Wallet paradox perfectly illustrates the difficulty of bridging high-level tech aspiration with the reality of national-scale implementation. It's really a failure of trust, not just technology.
Right from the start, the sources detail these severe structural and administrative deficiencies. There were massive reports of identity theft, often just to illicitly collect the government sign-up bonuses. That immediately erodes trust.
And beyond the security issues, the platform itself suffers from constant technical instability. Users report funds just disappearing, accounts being blocked with no explanation, transactions failing. When your money disappears, even temporarily, your confidence in the system just vanishes.
And the physical infrastructure that's meant to support it keeps failing. The physical Chivo ATMs frequently lack liquidity or are plagued by mechanical issues. This lack of reliability, combined with poor interoperability with things like the Lightning Network, it just limits the utility for everyday people.
And maybe the most damaging issue for a government project dealing with public funds is the transparency critique. There's a persistent lack of clarity about the custody of the nation's Bitcoin reserves and just general opaqueness. And that uncertainty has led most users to go back to reliable old cash or to migrate to third-party apps they feel they can trust more.
So we have the world's largest banks pouring billions into a tokenized future, while the nation that led the charge struggles with simple trust and transparency. That lack of local stability is, unfortunately, echoed in global political hotspots.
And that is the crucial link. The friction we see in financial systems is mirrored by explosive geopolitical tension, mostly driven by resource control.
Okay, let's shift our attention to those international conflicts, starting in the Caribbean. Tensions between Estados Unidos and Venezuela are escalating rapidly over maritime control.
This is a complex and very dangerous narrative. We're talking seizures of sovereign resources and alleged acts of piracy.
Venezuela accused Estados Unidos of piracy after U.S. military personnel and the Coast Guard seized a second oil tanker. They went further, claiming this action included the forced disappearance of the crew.
And Estados Unidos has been very firm in its justification. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth defended the action. He called it a maritime interdiction operation to dismantle illicit criminal networks. The stated goal was to ensure that violence, drugs, and chaos do not control the Western Hemisphere. That framing elevates it from a simple dispute to a strategic security operation.
And it's clearly escalating. We've learned that Estados Unidos is actively pursuing a third tanker, the Bella 1, which refused to be boarded. In response, Venezuela is reinforcing its military deployment against what it's now explicitly calling the United States threat. This is a high seas confrontation.
And that competition for resources in the Caribbean directly influences global commodity prices and shipping routes, which adds volatility to the whole economic landscape we just discussed.
Meanwhile, the conflict in Europe is also shifting, moving from the front lines to a very chilling, high-profile assassination in Moscow.
That is a severe escalation. It speaks volumes about internal security and the external pressures on the state.
Indeed. Russian Lieutenant General Fenil Sarvarov, chief of the Department of Operational Training of the General Staff, was killed by a car bomb in Moscow. A high-ranking military official responsible for operational training being targeted in the capital. That suggests a significant security failure. Or a message.
And this strategic hit contrasts with the shifting dynamics on the front lines. Russia reported significant advances in Kharkiv and Sumy, taking control of several towns.
Military analysts attribute these advances to a complex, almost painful Ukrainian decision, the need to reallocate critical reserves.
Yes, exactly. Analysts suggest Ukraine had to pull forces to reinforce the Kupiansk area, which then weakened their defenses elsewhere. It's being compared to the resource-intensive strategies used during the battle for Artemovsk, or Bakhmut, back in 2023. It just shows the constant complex tension on resources across a huge front.
So we've synthesized a huge amount of information today. Let's pull these key threads together for you listening.
Okay, the first major takeaway for me is still the paradox of prosperity. You have the incredible weight of remittances powering El Salvador's 5.1% growth, contrasted brutally with fundamental infrastructure issues like the lack of potable water and that impending pension crisis. The wealth just isn't translating into systemic stability for everyone.
And the second defining takeaway is that institutionalization of crypto. JPMorgan is betting its future on a fully tokenized world. That signals the final acceptance by legacy finance. However, the nation that pioneered this, El Salvador, sees its official tool, the Chivo Wallet, crumble under the weight of implementation failure, instability, and a fundamental lack of trust.
So pulling these threads together, what is the meta-narrative here for you? We've seen money flowing at record rates, unprecedented acceptance of digital assets on Wall Street, and simultaneous international conflicts over resources.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it suggests that despite the appearance of market consolidation and tech advancement, things like JPM coin, RWA tokenization, despite all that, geopolitical and localized stability remains the single greatest challenge to both traditional and digital economies. The market is evolving faster than the political infrastructure can support it. The transition is demonstrably volatile.
And one final thought, which brings us back to that issue of government trust and transparency we saw with the Chivo Wallet. We noted in the source material the controversy over the CBS program on the CECOT prison being postponed. Consider this. In an era defined by information overload and rapid technological integration, what role does media scrutiny and transparency, or the deliberate lack thereof, play in either validating or undermining these sovereign financial and social experiments? That's something for you to mull over as you process today's deep dive.